who is the great threat to democracy in this country? Is it Trump? Because the left would have you believe that it's Trump, or is it everybody else? And I thought you addressed that just perfectly.
The important thing about Trump is that there's a reason that they call him a dictator, right? In other words, here's the reason. Trump has a larger than life dimension. If you think about someone like Julius Caesar and you watch, Shakespeare's Caesar performed, you notice that when Caesar enters the room, all eyes turn. Caesar is a massive celebrity. In Caesar's case, of course, it's because he's a military hero. In Trump's case, it's because he was a massive cultural celebrity. But nevertheless, it's a larger than life figure, and everybody else feels small around Caesar. And the left feels small around Trump. They don't have a Caesar, quite honestly. I mean, you can't call Biden with his, his walker Caesar. Kamala Harris is like, these are cartoon figures compared to Trump. But the Democratic Party as a whole, putting all its institutional power together, the police agencies of the government, so they're a Caesar. They're an 800-pound gorilla. Yes. And Trump is an 800-pound gorilla who can take on their 800-pound gorilla. This is what makes the ambivalence of so many people in the GOP so mystifying. They're like the townspeople who are like, we don't need Clint Eastwood. We don't need John Wayne. We've got the old sheriff right over here. Why doesn't John Wayne learn to fight like us?
Yeah. Yes.
It's crazy. It makes no sense.
It's so true. It's so true. It's such a great point when you talk about the old guard GOP and how Trump has really changed the party. I think for me, as someone who came up as a Republican in the Trump era, was that I just became tired. And I lived through that transition period of the McCains and the Romneys to where we are with Trump and a lot of the America Firsters who are in Congress right now. I'm tired of being the party of the gentleman loser. I want to win. I want the outsider to come in and clean things up. And, you did a great job of breaking that down for people in this film, but also what I think you did, which is, I'll tell you, Dinesh, is not done enough, my friend, is you did a brilliant job. And I mean, brilliant job of humanizing this guy.
This was a little bit of my goal when I first met Trump. And, I'm not some guy who's like known Trump. I don't claim to be in the inside. I met Trump for the first time in 2019. This was a year after I got a pardon from Trump, and which itself is interesting. I never knew the guy. He didn't owe me a thing. But he did the pardon. And then I met him in the White House with my family. And we noticed that there was a kind of, Trump is like famously egotistical in public. I mean, he's hilariously egotistical. He's so over the top.
It's amazing.
It's laughable, right?
You had this quote from him in the film, like right at the beginning of the film where somebody's talking to him in an older interview, like Trump has an ego. He's like, if I was humble, you wouldn't be in a building like this right now.
Right. Or absolutely. I mean, his crowds aren't just big. They have to be the biggest crowds like ever assembled. The burger at Mar-a-Lago isn't just tasty. It's like the best burger ever made. Yeah. So he's over the top, but you would expect that in private, a guy like that would be like insufferable, like intolerable. But in private, Trump is a little shy. He's a little self-deprecating. He shows a great deal of interest in people, including people he's never met. And people he has met, he remembers things about them. Like, I heard your kid was taking an exam. How'd that come out?
Yes.
People are like blown away. They're like, what? My point is, I saw this side of Trump up close, and my wife was like, why doesn't he show that to the American people? So in the interview with Trump, I knew it was going to be tricky because I've seen interviews where Trump is, you ask him one question, he goes for 30 minutes straight.
Yes.
He's like a runaway train. So I'm like, I don't want that to happen. I want to sit really close up with him, ask him questions that are a little different than he normally gets. I want people to see the tumblers of his mind working. And I also want him to expose a little of that private side of him that's actually very endearing. He may have a bit of a manly resistance to like showing it on the public stage, but maybe I can bring it out in a subtle way. So I'm really thrilled that you saw that in the movie. I worked hard to try to produce that.
How did you do it? How did you do it? I'm sitting there with my wife and like, we have a relation. Like you, I've got a relationship with Donald Trump, not like his best friend or anything like that, but I've had access to the family and to him more than the average bear, so to speak. And my wife and I were talking while we watched this movie, and I said to her, I said, this is like the best damn interview I've ever seen Donald Trump have. And it was precisely because you could see him engaging on a deep and substantive level with the questions that you were asking. And how the hell did you do that?
Part of it is to know where Trump doesn't want to go. So I watched the Dr. Phil interview, and Dr. Phil, being a psychologist, was trying very hard to sort of put Trump on the couch, right?
Yeah.
Like the assassination. How did it make you feel? Now, you can't
Yes.
do that to Trump. He will not go there. He will not respond. He'll just say something else. So my idea was to ask him questions that are in his zone, right? But a little surprising. So kind of like this. They say that you called for an insurrection. As far as I can see, you didn't do that. You didn't tell people go in the Capitol, take it over, stop the count. You didn't do that. But had you called for an insurrection on January 6th, there would have been one. I mean, a real one. And there would be one if you called for one now. So that means that you have a peculiar kind of power. Well, what do you intend to do with that power? And then you can see Trump. I mean, I don't think he's been asked that in that way. He was like, you can see his eyes kind of.
I wrote down what he said. Dinesh, I wrote down what he said. Trump said, I mean, that was a very powerful moment in this film. Trump said, I don't know if I have that power. I don't know if I want that power. I've never seen Trump answer a question like that. And I'm like a ride or die Trump guy, but that was just a powerful, and I thought it was just a powerful exchange.